I'm Rachel Mars and I am one of the playwrights this year. So it's a 2-timeline piece that is half set in the 12th century in medieval Norwich, where I believe the person who's asking the questions is from. And it is tracking the origin of the sort of Catholic Church's blood libel myth that Jews kill small Christian boys and use their blood in matzah, which is ridiculous, but started in the UK and then has spread and it kind of pops up as a myth from time to time ever since. And then the other half is a contemporary timeline about wellness tech, because there's also this kind of anti-Semitic blood myth that is underscoring a lot of the kind of wellness. It's like as a kind of like wellness to QAnon pipeline. So it's kind of looking at the ways that those two intersect. So it's really about the Catholic Church, money, fear, and power. I was a bit tired of the UK not knowing its own history. So it constantly, when it wants to invoke stories of anti-Jewish hate, it is like, over there in Nazi Germany, and you're like, well, you invented this. And so I was just a bit tired of like my peers not knowing anything about it. And then when you go back to the actual story, I mean, not a lot of the show in the 12th century is invented. It's pretty much beat by bit how it happened. And it's amazing, actually. The creation of the myth it's filmic in the way that they were doing it. So it was really like a lot of my work is born through anger. And it was yet another one of those. But then it's also, I think, hopefully quite funny. So it's kind of, yeah, it was a way of asking questions about, like, is this myth ever going to go away? All the people in the past timeline are real. Like, they're all documented as real. There's a monk who's real. There's a bishop who's real. The Jews are real. The knight is real. So they're just lifted straight from history, with a kind of imagined with like a modern spin on them. And the present was slightly nicked from Elizabeth Holmes from Theranos. So yeah, stolen. Completely stolen, but hopefully with my sort of sense of humor put on the top of it. Often I create text and then I'll go into a room with collaborators and we'll futz about with it together. And the act of like sitting on your own and writing, which I understand is the playwright's job, is new to me. And when I was doing it, I was like, this should be illegal. It's so autocratic. Like I'm writing all these worlds, I'm writing all these characters and pretending that it's like another world, but it's not, it's all in my head. And I'm not sure that's like democratic. I'm like, what I mean is there's a certain power to it that I was like, oh, this could be really abused quite quickly. Playwrights are actually some of the people I really like are my contemporaries. There's a playwright in New York called Gab Reisman, one in Austin called Katie Bender, another one called Hannah Kanar. And they're all people that kind of conjure quite odd worlds. Those people. It's like theatre camp, the film. I mean, it's gorgeous. And it's been so nice to have really great conversations with a lot of people about art. And I have got used to my nun's quarter. So that's been good. But yeah, I think that anytime I do a residency like that, the main thing is meeting people and that kind of spark of conversation about art and about what it is to bring your work to an audience. That's where the interesting stuff happens. So I really love that bit. Even if you find that like your output is very different or your tastes are very different, it's always interesting to talk to someone about why they're doing what they're doing and what they hope their work is doing. And when I've done residencies like this before, I end up with like long-term collaborators. So or like people that you then send your work to and they send you notes and swap. So it's great. I hope that we stay in touch, actually, because I think, yeah, there's great people here. I'd never heard it out loud before. I'd heard it out loud once, but not with an audience. So it was really interesting to like bring it to an American audience and see where the laughs were, where the interest was, where like what references were not working, because it's kind of a form of translation in that way. But I was surprised. I thought, oh, I'm not sure it's going to work at all as a translation, but I think it did. So that was surprising. And just like I don't often work, I was so gobsmacked and thrilled by the actors and their curiosity and their really smart questions and their offers. And so it just felt like a really generous room, and I absolutely loved that. I mean, it's it's a bizarre mix of like heavy work and then going to the beach, which I think is important because I think like pleasure, increasingly, I think because this industry is so hard and the sector is so difficult to be in, that when we do the work, it's got to be pleasurable. Like it's got to, I mean, it can be difficult and challenging, but above all, it's got to be pleasurable. So being in this circumstance where there's a lot of, that you can choose pleasure and having a restful time as well as the like hardcore interrogation, I think is really important.